This episode is brought to you by Energize Colorado. Energize Colorado is a nonprofit that provides resources and advising to small businesses across the state. Energize Colorado is here to create a more resilient foundation for the state's small business ecosystem. They provide the resources necessary for small businesses to flourish. Low interest loans to energize your small business with Energize Colorado. Learn more at energizecolorado.com.
Today on CityCast Denver, we elected a brand new mayor this week. That means the Hancock era is over and the Mike Johnston era is about to begin. So how are all those big campaign promises going to turn out? We got the master of political narratives in to help us set expectations for Mayor-elect Johnston and break down all the other local stories that mattered this week. Today is Friday, June 9th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome back to CityCast Denver, the show about the city with a brand new apex predator to fear. Cows.
Oh, jeez.
Did you see that story this week? Yeah, it's about the cow.
Attacked somebody?
Yeah, 15 to 20 cows attacked somebody just outside of Superior this week, Bree.
Why?
I don't know. I think it was because it was like a calf season.
Oh, there was like babies around?
Yeah, something like that.
Good for the cows.
Good for the cows, sure.
They're protecting their babies. I would kill somebody if they tried to hurt my baby.
Something you have in common with the cows. That's nice.
Thank you.
So Bree's here. You've heard her voice. It's Friday. We're here at the lovely offices of 5280 Magazine downtown, and we have a fantastic guest today. Maybe you know him from his Academy Award nomination for one of my favorite movies of the past few years, Don't Look Up. Maybe you know him from his years on talk radio here in Denver. Maybe you know him as Bernie Sanders' former speechwriter, or perhaps the news site he founded, The Lever, which did some explosive reporting around the Ohio train derailment, which, I don't know. I mean, we probably won't get into it, but just blew my mind. David Sirota, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
David, what's your relationship with cows like?
I once met a set of cows up in Montana when I was working on a Senate race, and when the candidate who was running for Senate introduced me to his cows and I got to know his cows, that was when I decided to become a vegetarian.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. What was it? What was it? Tell me about the moment.
Was it that they had names?
Just they were, like you think of them as just cows, and then you actually see them as animals, and I was like, you know what, I don't feel like eating them anymore.
That's a great reason.
Well, David, you were on the show before, like I mentioned. I have to ask before we get into the news of the week here. We went to Zadie's with you and talked about Jewish delis in Southeast Denver. There's a new deli in town people are talking about.
I have not had a chance yet to try it, but I only am hearing good things.
Call your mother?
Call your mother deli, yes.
DC based, right?
That's what I've heard as well.
I'm assuming both of you lived in DC. Am I making that assumption
I lived
about
in DC for a little bit.
Yeah, I was there before
Politics.
this new chain started up, though.
Yes.
I didn't know it from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they've tweaked the water, like Rosenberg's tweaks the water.
To make the bagels, because that's the argument, right? For the New York bagel is better because the water
exactly.
that they use.
Exactly.
Okay. That's a good question.
And I should say, anything that can increase competition in the bagel economy in Denver
is good.
I am for that.
Me too. Me too.
We gotta go try it.
I agree. We should do a bagel battle. Maybe coming soon to the show. But we should get into the news of the week. The top story this week, of course, was the election. Denver voters elected our first new mayor in 12 years, Mike Johnston. Mayor-elect Mike Johnston.
Mm-hmm.
Still feels a little weird to say, but we got to get used to it. He's going to be inaugurated on July 17th. It's his city to run. No takebacks. But all that means that the Hancock era is over after 12 years and the Johnston era is about to begin. David, this is why we wanted to talk to you. This is your wheelhouse. This is political narratives, and now it's kind of becoming real. Like, what is he really going to do? So I want to start with you and that big question. What do you think we can expect from Mayor-elect Mike Johnston?
I mean, I think he campaigned as a Democrat in a Democratic city, and he ultimately got into a runoff with a person who was more Republican-leaning and could arguably have been called a Republican. I mean, somebody who ran the Chamber of Commerce. She got endorsed by the Denver Republican Party, and so I think that him running as a Democrat plus a huge amount of money was the deciding factor in this election. And I think there's an argument that what we saw is new money versus old money. New money, meaning outside money that came into this city, from Reid Hoffman, California billionaires behind Mike Johnston. And you might ask, well, why are they?
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Why are they so interested in Denver's election?
It's a great question, and I don't think I have a specifically straightforward answer other than to say that donors like that tend to see politicians like stocks, like they're betting on a stock. Like when Kelly Brough had said that Mike Johnston, she implied that this was just a way station for him, that he's going to want to run for Senate, for governor, for president, whatever. I actually think that's part of why a lot of these donors played in this race. They see a quote unquote rising star. Now, the question is, do they want anything? Right? Because when I said that there's new money and old money, new money is sort of floating out there does Reid Hoffman even know where Denver is?
Right.
I'm not even sure he knows where Denver is. Reid Hoffman being one of the billionaires who funded Mike Johnston's campaign. Kelly Brough ran with a more traditional donor base, basically transactional donors who are here, developers, et cetera, et cetera.
Pete Coors.
Yeah, exactly. People
Realtors associations.
who do business here, who want business with and from the city. So the new money won. So then, of course, the question is, well, what does that money want? And I don't think there's an easy answer. And the really interesting thing is going to be, and kind of scary thing is that in not knowing, it's going to be hard to tell. It's going to be hard to see what they're asking him for.
Huh. Well, it's interesting because, we did ask Mike Johnston when he was on the show about this, and he says that these billionaire supporters of his were just aligned with his progressive values. And, we do know that Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn co-founder, is just as interested in the education reform movement as Johnston was, and that's where they met. And so that's kind of the next question is like the progressive values, is that going to be real? How are we going to see that in this city? What does Mike believe in? What is he actually going to do? Bree, what do you think we can expect?
I mean, the big thing that he talked about was housing and homelessness, which is arguably the issue of the last decade here in Denver. The thing that he was talking about was sort of this decentralizing what we've always done, or what we've done for the last couple of decades, which is the shelter model, the shelter system, which advocates and unhoused folks will tell you does not work. And it seems like that's what Mike is talking about is, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't think he's going to eliminate the shelters, but he's talking more the micro communities, which we're already seeing as safe outdoor spaces. So that to me was just the biggest thing I took away, was he was talking about something people cared about, and he seemed to have what felt like a good solution.
Yeah, that's the one thing. He said he's going to do these micro communities, 20 micro communities for people experiencing homelessness across the state. And when he talked to Colorado Public Radio after his big win, he said, they were like, what are you going to do first? What does the first 100 days of the Johnston administration look like? And he said, I'm going to start looking for these sites, probably even before inauguration. And he's also going to focus on getting, I'm quoting now from his interview, getting more officers on the street and first responders on the street to make sure the city feels safe in all of our neighborhoods. Now, that was kind of surprising to me that he was leading with police like that. David, how about you? Was that a surprise?
It's not a surprise. I mean, I think that this idea that people don't feel safe is something that you've seen a lot of politicians across the country trying to look like they are speaking to. I do think that it's good that he's talking about more social workers, a more holistic approach to crime. I think that's encouraging as opposed to sort of the old tough on crime mantra. I think when it comes to homelessness and housing in general, I think the question that I have for somebody like Mike Johnston is ultimately there isn't necessarily a third way. And by that, I mean there isn't necessarily solutions that never take on powerful interests, right? Politicians who are backed by billionaires are always looking for ways to solve problems without actually taking on the billionaire class. So as it relates to something like homelessness or affordable housing, are you going to be willing to take on the real estate industry, the developers who may not want to give up X or Y piece of property, or who may not want specific mandates for affordable housing, or who may not want these mini communities near their expensive buildings in their neighborhoods? Are you willing to actually take them on? And here's the thing, and I'm not making a one-to-one direct relationship comparison here, but billionaires tend to have their money in a lot of different things, and especially in real estate. So I would start asking, well, do any of the people who bankrolled Mike Johnston's campaign, do they have any interests here at whether in private equity firms or in giant real estate firms that Mike Johnston won't necessarily want to take on? I mean, that's going to take a lot of reporting to see if those connections exist. And I'm not saying, I don't know if they do, but I think ideologically, the question that I always have for candidates like that is, your solutions sound nice and good now, but ultimately you're going to hit a moment where you're going to have to take on the wealthy billionaire class that is sort of generally behind you. And when that moment comes, what are you going to do?
This is making me think about who endorsed Mike Johnston, right? The union groups. That was a really big one. I saw a lot of very progressive politicians coming out and support. My friend, Senator Julie Gonzalez, who's on the ground working with folks every day, was like, I am casting my vote for Mike Johnston, but this is making me think, you're right. When it comes down to that, where are those things going to play out? Is he going to push up against these folks, or is he going to ask them? Because you're right, money, the change in Denver, it's real estate changing hands, real estate, it's everything in Denver. And is he going to challenge that? Because that's been the biggest criticism of Hancock, is he's like in the developer's pocket. Is Mike Johnston going to be different?
And I think it was easy for progressive lawmakers like Julie and others to endorse Johnston when in a runoff where he's up against Kelly Brough.
Fair,
right?
Totally
so
fair.
It's like, and let's talk a little bit about oil and gas. I mean, one thing that I'm most encouraged by that in the difference between those two candidates was Mike Johnston has said that he supports limiting or even banning natural gas infrastructure in new construction. Kelly Brough has been an ally of the oil and gas industry for a long time. Most certainly did not sign on to that kind of idea. And I can't remember if he said limited but the point is that either to limit or to ban, and that's been talked about in states and cities all across the country.
Home electrification has been a huge trend this year.
Thing. That's a huge difference between those candidates. But I will say this, to go back to the theme we were just talking about, that's going to require you to take on the oil and gas industry, which remains incredibly politically powerful in Colorado, in the capital. It's an incredibly politically powerful industry here in Denver. Like when push comes to shove and the bill comes down to actually do this in the city council, the devil is always in the details. You turn a shall to a may, you turn a word here, a word there, and something that sounds like you're fulfilling a campaign promise ultimately ends up being a press release. So that's what everyone should be watching. But again, I'm encouraged that he took that stand. The question now is, will he maintain that stand?
That's where
fascinating.
That's the accountability piece.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. I'm just thinking about how legal weed rolled out and this real estate question. Where do we see the dispensaries? In the places where vested interests are not so vested. And that, I don't know, that's shaped our city the way that happened. And I wonder what the next phase of that's going to look like. But let's talk about the narrative. That's kind of the big thing in our coverage of this election, Bree. You talked to Mike Johnston twice, and we've talked so much about the Hancock era being like, oh, developers, boo. He's in the pocket of developers. And then there's this question of like the community groups that rose up in opposition to Hancock. I feel like that really was the narrative of like growth and like natives versus transplants. But we're in a different place now. Like growth is slowing down. We need a new narrative. What is that going to be? What is the Johnston era's narrative of Denver? Bree, do you want to take that?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's still a lot of the same. I think that in the developer's pocket criticism of Hancock, which I have said many times myself, I wonder if that will be similar, just because how do we get housing built? That's the other complicated part, right? Social housing absolutely is an option. Community land trust is an option. What is that actually going to look like in practice? I don't know. That's what actually I'm waiting for, Paul, to be honest with you, is to see what Johnston's vision for Denver is, because he's done campaigning. Now he's got to do the shaping. He's got to do, like you're saying, he's got to sign things. And is he going to may, shall, or will? I think it'll be interesting to see what he actually doubles down on.
And I think a lot of cities are thinking about right now, how do we not become San Francisco?
Right.
Like San Francisco, by the way, has been a great city, but clearly has problems. And it's not unique to San Francisco, but it's become sort of this cartoon idea of unbelievable wealth inequality,
obliteration of culture, frankly.
Absolutely. Obliteration of culture. There's homelessness. There have been, now whether you believe the stats or not, it's for different political narratives, crime, is crime being enforced? Is it not being, that roiled by crime debates. And I think that Denver, you can sense that there's been some effort to try to cast it as that. Probably because it's got liberal politics, and it's sort of easy to just say, oh well.
Yeah, I was going to say rural politicians.
Yeah, right. It's like Colorado,
San
Francisco. But I think if you're looking like long term for Denver, we have both real opportunities and huge challenges in this way. The real opportunities is that geographically we are actually decently positioned in the climate crisis, as compared to places like Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Phoenix. Our supply of water, if you look at the maps of where the water table is going to move and change, we're right on the edge. Like, we are not Phoenix, thank God. We are not Las Vegas, thank God. But how our city manages water. You've seen cities in Las Vegas put in ordinances about, lawns and those kinds of things. You saw Phoenix now I think it's banning or at least limiting new development because the city's water supplies can't tolerate it. I think looking beyond the immediate crisis of homelessness here in the city, the question for this mayor is also going to be, how do we start planning in a real serious way for a climate crisis that we know is upon us, that not that we could benefit from, but we could certainly fortify ourselves in a way that other cities can't.
This connection with the climate and the water that you're making, David, that is really fascinating to me, because I feel like water, especially the way you're framing it, it's so connected with our growth question. It's a limiting factor for growth. And if growth is slowing down, that's got to be connected with housing prices and this density conversation we've been having all year. But the other aspect of growth is like that the Hancock years were defined by was innovation. Like, we had this tech industry bubble up here and become really popular. A lot of jobs came here, a lot of young people with new ideas. Do you think that that's going to continue in the next decade under Johnston? Are we going to see that same like fresh energy here? Because that was kind of cool.
I personally don't. But I don't say that in a sort of pessimistic way. I think we have until we deal with the affordability problem, then I think growth, like there's an economic barrier to growth in the sense of if your city becomes so unaffordable, people literally can't afford to live here. We have a city where, what did I read the stat? It was that 1 in 5 teachers can't afford, don't make enough or don't have enough to afford a house or even rent in the metro area. And we don't have things that make the city or could make the city more affordable, or we haven't built them out as much. Example, we don't really have terrific public transit in Denver, to say the least.
To say the least.
Right? Okay, so if you think about public transit, okay, it's good for the environment. It gets you out of your car. You're not sitting in traffic. It makes the commute less. But it also, in doing all of that, when you have a good public transportation system, it brings down the cost of living. You don't necessarily have to have a car, right? Which is a huge expense. So multiply that over a number of different things that cities are involved in, and then ask yourself, can we make this an affordable city? Because if we can't, that is going to limit growth on top of any other thing like water or the climate situation.
Bree, what do you think?
It's fair. I have a very similar view. I really agree. It comes back to affordability. But what I think about is, sure, we attracted the tech bros and the young folks that had a lot of expendable income. But if no one's there to take their trash or fix their plumbing, or, the blue collar folks, which Denver, I grew up in the city. It was a blue collar city in terms of affordability. You could afford to buy a house. My parents bought their house in their 20s, a nurse and a teacher. You can't do that anymore. So if we don't have those fundamental folks that make the city work, all of those luxury people that want to live here, they're not going to have anybody to do all the things. And what are we left with?
I mean, this is in part why we moved here. I mean, I met my wife, who's now a state legislator here. I met her in Washington, D.C., which is an insanely expensive place to live. And we were looking across the country. We're living up in Montana, where I met the cows. And we wanted to move back to a city. And we were looking across the country and was like, look, LA's way too expensive and insane. San Francisco is wildly unaffordable. Boston, wildly unaffordable. New York, New York, DC, no, the only two cities that really came up for things that we wanted in our lives and we could afford, Denver and Chicago. Those are the two that kind of came up. And now, that was 17 years ago or so. Now, no one would call Denver an affordable city. That's the version of me then, if I was that age now, Denver wouldn't be on my list. I'm not sure what would be on my list, but I don't think Denver could be on my list. I'd want it to be, but I don't think it could.
Yeah.
I think affordability is huge, but I don't think it's the only thing. Because I think the innovation, the tech, that's a whole nother thing. That's the defining, that's what's giving people excitement. That's also luring people here. There's new ideas. Denver has this unique character. We have the Denver Nuggets, who may be on the precipice of winning a national championship. We have the aspirational stuff too on the other side.
Denver is such a great destination if it can be affordable, in that you're near the mountains, you've got culture, you're in the American West, you're not, there's so many. That's why 17 years ago, my wife and I were like, this place rules. We gotta go there. But you could say the same thing about San Francisco, right near all beautiful stuff, and it's well situated, it's a gorgeous place, but that can't be on any working class person's list because it's insanely expensive. You just can't make the math work. So I certainly agree with you that if the jobs are here and if the affordability is here, it's a plus destination. But I think that affordability question is the biggest question of all. And for a mayor, you got to be trying to think, what in my jurisdiction what can I do to make things more affordable?
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. We will be back after a quick break with something else.
This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. While we sometimes deal with wildfire smoke, did you know that the Front Range's biggest air quality issue is actually invisible? Created from pollutants like car exhaust that react in sunlight, ground-level ozone is a leading cause of respiratory problems. If you go out for an evening jog after a beautiful sunny day and feel that tightness in your chest, that could well be ground-level ozone. Besides feeling really out of breath, long-term exposure to high levels of ozone is linked to respiratory illnesses. But there is something you can do. Sign up for ground-level ozone alerts to be aware of bad air days. To receive air quality alerts on your phone, text Better Air CO to 21000. You can also sign up online for emails at simplestepsbetterair.org. You'll also receive tips on how to improve air quality, so high ozone days happen less often. To stay in the know about bad air quality days and learn more, visit simplestepsbetterair.org. This episode is brought to you by Bad Boy Boards. Based right here in Denver, Bad Boy Boards takes raw hardwood and turns it into world-class cutting boards, charcuterie boards, chess boards, and more. It's a local brand with high quality and great prices, which is great because home chefs like me don't have to settle for anything less than simple elegance in world-class quality hardwood boards and dust covers. They also make gifting customizable and super easy. Oh, and this is super cool. If you stop by Bad Boy Boards, you can watch a live stream of the manufacturing floor so you can actually see your cutting board being made. Seriously, it's so cool. It's like if Willy Wonka made cutting boards. Learn more and order your own individually designed, constructed, and finished board at badboyboards.com.
All right, and we're back. So we're going to do a little segment here with David and Bree. It's one of our favorites, new favorite, I guess, wins and fails of the week. So we've all prepared a local story that we think is a win and a local story we think is a fail. I think we should do fails first so we can end on the nice stuff. David, Bree, do either of you want to start?
I can start with a fail. Now, full disclosure, this was my wife's piece of legislation that I've been living with this legislation and with my wife, obviously, for the legislative session. Big fail was a piece of legislation on affordable housing to give cities the right across Colorado to, if a developer comes in and wants to buy, let's say, an apartment building, it would give the city the right, what's called a right of first refusal, to make an offer, to match the offer, not undercut the offer, but like, a developer comes in, $50 million for this building, the city could say, no, we want to buy it for the same price to turn it into affordable housing. That bill passed the legislature, and then the corporate lobby went to work. Brownstein, the big lobbying firm here in Denver, the Colorado Concern, sort of all the corporate groups went to Jared Polis, asked Jared Polis to veto it, and he vetoed it in the middle of an affordable housing crisis. That is a fail.
Now, I saw you talking about this on Twitter a little bit. You're talking about the lobbying groups that were against this. Can you say a little bit more about who this was and like why you think they were against it?
It's basically the real estate industry, and they have their hands in all of the sort of business, the general business groups, the chambers of commerce and the like. I guess their argument was that this could slow down real estate transactions in theory, right? Like some company comes in, makes a bid, we want to buy it. The city could say, wait a minute, you got to wait a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks for us under this law to make a counteroffer. And they were arguing, they extrapolated that, in my view, nonsensical argument to this is going to tamp down the construction and the development of multifamily housing. I think that's a lot of nonsense. I think that this was a minimal step. I'm not denigrating the legislation, but it was like the least you should do is allow a city to say, hey, if some big company is coming in to buy a building and the city has been waiting to try to find places to do more affordable housing, the city can make an offer so that it's fair to you're not screwing the seller, right? You're saying, I'm going to pay the same price that you just got a bid for. That seems like the most minimal thing to do. And by the way, if the other company wants to come back and say we're going to offer more, and the city can't meet that, fine. But give the cities a chance to develop affordable housing. It's the most sort of least you should do. And the governor nonetheless still vetoed it. And I think what it tells us is that in this state's politics, I don't think anybody who's in politics in this state knows this. When business says jump, the leadership of both parties say how high. That's how it works here.
I don't know if I agree with you on that.
Paul and I were discussing this earlier, and Paul, first of all, were you surprised that the governor vetoed it?
No, not at all. I don't think this is about business interests. I think this is about how Governor Polis sees the housing market. I think he sees it as a market first. And at least, he made this such a big priority this year that we have to work with the market. We have to do this supply side thing to build more housing, work with developers, make it easier and easier to do it. I think he saw this legislation as an additional piece of regulation that's going to slow the market down.
Except without giving away too many internal details that I happen to know, the governor's office did not tell the legislators he would veto this. They were encouraging or at least accepting of this bill moving through the legislature with, by the way, their input. In other words, it wasn't just something they sprung on him. It was like, we want to do this. Okay, the governor's office says, well, we want you to put this in and that and do this. The lobbying didn't go to work until after it had passed, which tells you that the corporate lobbyists think that they have a governor who, even after the governor's own party passes bills through the legislature, they think they have a governor who can be their kill switch. And that is a problem. And I think that's what it showed us with Jared Polis, is that he is willing to be the corporate lobby's kill switch, even when his own party, in consultation with him, is trying to do the right thing in the legislature.
Well, I don't. The Democrats are so divided. I mean, yes, it's his party, but there are very different ideas on housing, and it's okay to disagree. I think they'll figure it out next year. There's going to be a lot of talking about this.
That is what my wife says, by the way. I don't want to speak for her, but she was all down in the dumps when this thing got vetoed, and she was like, I just got to keep reminding myself that we come back for another fight. Like sometimes these things take a while, and we're going to be back at it again.
A lot about the idea, getting the idea out there,
totally,
before people get on
totally.
board.
Bree, how about you? What's your fail?
Oh, well, we already kind of brought it up in a joke, but RTD has failed us yet again. Our friend Nate Miner at Denverite had this great story, and by great, I mean just like devastatingly embarrassing for RTD story about this woman who was a regular bus rider. She picked up the bus at first in Lincoln, the Zero bus, one of the most rode buses in the city. It was trashed all the time. She kind of adopted it herself. She started cleaning it up. She contacted RTD and was like, hey, I'm cleaning this bus stop. Can you clean it? And they were like, actually, a private firm owns that bus stop. And it's called Outdoor Promotions. And it's their job to clean it up. And she was like, okay, well, can I adopt the spot? Like, I will officially adopt because they have those adopt a spot and you can clean it. And they said no, because it's owned by a private company. RTD just said, well, it appears that it's getting to be too much to maintain. After she goes to a couple weeks after, no, it's been a couple months after she's been emailing and cleaning it up. And she goes to her bus one day and the bus stop is gone. The shelter's gone. The bench is gone.
That's not funny, but
the whole thing is gone.
Sad.
And she called RTD and they were like, actually, local government owns it. And she's like, okay. And then she was like, well, I tried to adopt it. And they were like, this advertising agency owns it. So what I liked about Nate's reporting is that he dug in, and Outdoor Promotions pays Denver a paltry $58,000 in permitting fees every 6 months for 147 bus shelters and kiosks. They're advertising. I can't imagine what they make in advertising. The least they could do was clean it up, not remove it. And she kind of was saying in this story, I'm trying to be a bus rider and you're making it impossible for me to be a bus rider. So we can do free fare for better air all we want. But if you can't shelter people, and we know this is the majority of bus stops aren't covered anyway. It's like when you try to do the right thing and they literally remove the bus stop. This is so embarrassing. RTD is so embarrassing. No wonder we are not a competitive big city if we don't have a good, not just robust public transit system, one that works.
Totally.
On a basic level.
Couldn't agree more. That strikes me as a big opportunity for another advertising company to come in and outbid them. Let's get some more money in RTD's coffers here. You know, they're getting a sweetheart deal.
It reminds me of that story, the gentleman that just wrote the book on parking. The city of Chicago sold all their parking meters to JP Morgan. For like $1 billion or something. And it ended up that JP Morgan makes 3 times that every year or something.
Let me just say something. JP Morgan doesn't buy something unless it can make 10 times what it bought it for.
And the city has to go to JP Morgan every time they want to close a street down or have a parade. They have to talk to a private company. And I just felt this was a little bit like that, where I was like, oh, an outdoor advertising agency owns it, and that's the reason I can't get someone to pick up the trash at my bus stop? It was mind-blowing.
Oh, boy.
Mind-blowing.
Oh, boy.
Paul, what was yours?
Well, I'm going to kind of come into the nexus of your two. I got a little state politics and a little bit of the pandemonium on our streets. So remember the Towing Bill of Rights the state legislature passed last year? This was this big bill that promised to like crack down on predatory towing, which has been such a big problem. I mean, and there was so much stuff in this bill. It was like towing companies have to give 24 hours notice for a tow. It banned tows with expired tags. It required tow companies to return your vehicle if you pay a 15% of the total fees up front. And that is the key measure of this bill, because according to the Denver Post this week, towing companies have been flouting the Towing Bill of Rights.
They just don't.
Wyatt's Towing in particular has figured out a loophole. What they're doing is they're requiring people to take out a loan with the company to get their cars. So it's not about this 15% total fees. They're ignoring that by calling it a loan.
Oh, no.
That's really, really evil.
Isn't that just like...
That's super creepy.
As if Wyatt's Towing was just not synonymous with evil already, and now they've become their own bank.
It's like one of the most hated companies in the city, I think.
God, that is really... I mean, I don't admire it, but I marvel at how, like, imagine sitting down and thinking through that and coming up with that.
A smoke-filled room of guys with cigars just being like, hey, you know what we're going to do next?
Like
become a bank.
Like whiteboarding it, you know?
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
The silver lining, of course, is that the lawmakers who passed the bill last year, they're aware of this now, and they've sent a letter to the Public Utilities Commission.
Cool.
They're talking about this. The lawyers are working on it. we'll see.
That is a little bit of a silver lining because that's government in action.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Accountability.
All right, let's do some wins. Let's do some fun stuff. David, you want to start us off?
Well, I mean, I could talk about the Nuggets. I would actually, because it's Friday. If we were recording this earlier, if we were recording this on Wednesday day, I would not have said that was a win because I was very nervous. It was 1-1 and we just lost. But obviously, the Nuggets, fingers crossed. Finals, please let that happen, please. The other win I just want to throw out there is that the Paid Family Leave Act that we passed as a state is continuing to be implemented. I continuously, running the lever, for instance, getting updates about how it is being implemented, and I'm sure business owners who are listening to this are getting those updates as well. And I think the win here is that one, we were told by the business community that doing this, the sky would fall, Colorado would, fall into some, horrible disrepair. And actually the sky has not fallen. The paid family leave situation is now being implemented quite smoothly. And by the way, it's the law has worked to a point where payroll companies, for instance, are able to work with the law itself to make it not such a paperwork burden for small businesses, and I think that was good. So point is that we've actually done something. It's not perfect. It's not the best it could possibly be, but it's something serious to provide lots and lots of employees and small businesses that want to provide this to their employees a paid family leave system, and we did that at the ballot box. So we should all feel kind of proud of that.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's a great win. That's a great win.
It's life-changing as a person that was pregnant and was able to take time off to be with my newborn. It was incredible.
Yes.
So I'm glad more people have that opportunity. Paul, what's yours?
Okay, I have a controversial win this week.
Lord.
This is a win I don't think many other people are going to see as a win, because the headlines this week were Denver area's last drive-in movie theater to close.
I saw that.
Which, 10 years ago when the city of Commerce City was talking about traffic problems around the 88 drive-in, they were saying, safety issues, 20,000 people rallied to help save this thing. So a few years later, this is my win. Why? The owner, Susan Kochevar, she says the drive-in doesn't work there anymore. It doesn't make sense. It's not a good drive-in experience. And I read some reviews of this place for the last few years. It sounds awful. Like, she talked about light pollution from the surrounding warehouses because of growth in the area, which would totally ruin a drive-in movie experience. I don't really want to see a drive-in when there's a bunch of light and noise around me. And it sounds like she wasn't making a lot of money and the situation was just kind of getting deteriorated. And anyway, the win is, this state has many drive-in movie theaters that are protected with historic designations. The one I love is in Fort Collins, the Holiday Twin. But there's this new one I was reading about down in the San Luis Valley, which is very dark. Perfect for drive-ins.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
They just did this huge renovation. They spent a ton of money. They've got new overnight lodging, 10 modern yurts, 4 relatively luxurious Steelmaster sheds. So you can spend a couple of nights. You can see some drive-in movies in this internationally recognized dark sky site. Sounds like a beautiful drive-in experience, and we still have it here in this state. That's my win.
Can I also recommend Movie Manor in Monte Vista? It's a hotel that has set up like a drive-in, so you can lay in your bed and there's a giant window and you can watch the movie that way.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it rules.
I love it.
So you're right. I like that. I mean, I feel you. Sometimes things have to close because they don't function anymore.
You guys are giving me ideas.
Exactly.
My kids are about to go away to camp, and we've got like 2 or 3 weeks of just me and my wife.
Oh,
these
do
are
a little
these are
around
like good ideas.
Around the state travel.
Yeah,
Monte
totally.
Vista, San Luis Valley, gorgeous. Gorgeous.
I love it down there. Bree, what's your win?
Well, some listeners' favorite topic, others not. Mine, for sure. New York Times, a little newspaper called the New York Times wrote this amazing piece on Casa Bonita.
Saw that.
I say amazing because it gave us information that I think we overlook as people that are obsessed with it like me. I learned stuff from the New York Times article that I didn't know, and I thought I knew everything about Casa Bonita. For one, the food was steamed. That may be why it was so gross.
No ovens.
No ovens. There were no ovens, no range tops, said Matt Stone. All steamers. They steamed everything. Oh my God, revelation. No wonder my enchiladas were disgusting. They spent $40 million to renovate this place. You guys, if people are like, they're going to ruin it. No, they care so much. I think they joked that they could have started from scratch and built an exact replica for cheaper. And instead,
that was such a good detail.
They went deep on this Mexican restaurant in a strip mall that used to be a Jocelyn's department store and tore it down to the studs and recreated it. They said it took 27 tries to find the right paint color for the trees. 20. Who's going to put that much time into it, right? And then also they said there are 4 deciduous trees.
Wait, no, not for the trees, for the pink, the outside. The
pink.
Pepto-Bismol
sorry, that
pink.
was for the pink. They were matching the tree color, but the pink, you're right. The pink was the 27 tries. But there are 4 deciduous trees and 62 palm trees in there. If someone can tell me where the deciduous trees are, I can't picture it. And since I have not been able to get back in there, I need to know. So these were just some things that I picked up from it. However, I do want to make 2 notes of minor errors. Technically, it is Black Bart's hideout. The New York Times calls it Black Bart's cave, which we know it as colloquially as Black Bart's cave.
We always have. For many years, everyone says Black Bart's cave. But technically,
accuracy's sake, it is Black Bart's hideout. I texted resident Colorado Casa Bonita expert Andrew Novick, and he not only confirmed that it is the hideout, he sent me 2 pictures from 2 different eras of Casa Bonita confirming that it is the hideout. So the New York Times...
fact check, New York Times.
That's right.
Sorry.
The other thing was they said people call it Casa Noita. And never in my entire life have I ever heard anyone say that. So, and this is coming, I knew.
That felt fake.
I felt like someone told him that and he was like, oh yeah, this is great story. This is great copy. And I would just say, as a person who knew dudes who had an annual party at Casa Bonita and would go eat all you can eat enchiladas, and the person that lost was the person who puked first. So they didn't call it Casa Noita. No one was calling it Casa Noita.
Boy.
So at any rate, I just want to say sometimes when we get those parachuting in reporters, they do a terrible job. The New York Times knocked it out of the park. If you haven't read this story, we'll link it. The photos are incredible. It's a really fun piece.
David, what did you think about this story?
I liked it a lot. I can't wait to go back. Although I'm worried that the wait list is going to be like 1 million people. And
100,000 people have signed up.
Right.
And I'm
going to be curious. Are they going to keep the prices roughly the same?
They kind of talked about that. That's what they were concerned with. From what I'm gathering, there might be tiered pricing or a basic level and then the ability to buy more things because they have ticketing areas that they've set up. But I'm also curious about that. They're cognizant of it.
Good.
Yeah, they're still working on the pricing. That's That's kind of an important detail.
Yeah, because I mean, they mentioned like the James Beard Chef Award,
right?
You know, like it's like
Dana Rodriguez.
Yeah, like it's going to be. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be an incredibly upgraded experience. Like I feel like it's going to be, in my mind, I have like it's going to be like Casa Bonita, but Meow Wolf, right? Like that level of like awesomeness. Mm-hmm. But I Meow Wolf is not cheap, right? Like I. One of the cool things about Casa Bonita
was it was
that like anybody, not any, but you know, it's an expense, but it's under $25. Like it's relatively affordable for families, and I hope they keep that.
Oh, one note you mentioned Meow Wolf. Casa Bonita is full on trolling Meow Wolf. They have put up a billboard right next to Meow Wolf. It says like now, you know, like come see cliff divers or whatever. I was dying. I was driving through Sun Valley the other day, which also I saw a white man jogging and I was like, did not see this on my Colorado 2.0 bingo card, a white man jogging through Sun Valley shirtless. But then I looked up and I was like, and I looked over and it was like, you could see it from Meow Wolf. This is a
That's
battle.
Gotta be
I am
deliberate.
Excited for this battle.
That's got to be deliberate. Meow Wolf versus Casa Bonita.
100%.
I can't wait. How about that for the Johnston era's narrative? Give us that. Give us that battle for the next 10 years. Duke it out.
Which side is Mike Johnston on?
We'll ask him. We'll talk to him again. I'm sure we'll ask him. But anyway, we've got one more segment for you before we wrap up today's show. And we're going to get there after another quick break.
What's up, weather fam? Rain or shine, I'm Andy Stein here with your CityCast Denver weather forecast for this weekend. Hey, if you could believe it, well, one, fun thing, I'm getting married this weekend in Denver, and two, it looks like it's going to be a rainy weekend in Denver, and I, of course, have an outdoor ceremony and reception, but hey, I am working my magic and hoping to have a good day. I hope everybody else has great Saturdays and Sundays this weekend. It looks like there's going to be a cold front rolling through Denver around midday on Saturday, and that's going to start to drop our temperatures, bring in some cloud cover, spawn off a few storms, and then Sunday, it's looking like one of those kind of more cloudy, dreary upslope days with cool high temperatures only in the mid 60s to upper 60s at best, but then we start to clear out a little bit and warm up as we head into next week. So just another spurt of rain for us. Fun little fact for everybody. We have seen over 8 inches of rain since May 1st, and the average amount of rain that Denver sees an entire year is 14.5 inches. So that is quite a lot, y'all. Have fun.
All right, and we're back. It's time for the official CityCast Denver maybe for your weekend, as in maybe you'll see us there, because as usual, there's so many cool things happening in Denver this weekend, but there's only one where you might see us. Peyton Garcia rounds up her best bets in our newsletter, Hey Denver, every week, and she's here to give us her top picks. Peyton, welcome back to the show.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah.
All right, first thing, Lighthouse Writers Workshop is opening their brand new space. Not only are they going to have a big ribbon cutting ceremony that is going to include refreshments and tours of the space and a pop-up bookstore from the Bookies, but it's also going to kick off their annual Lit Fest, which is for nerds across Colorado
Like
who love
yourself.
to read and write. Yes.
Litfest
me.
rules. Litfest is so fun.
Says
like,
fellow
people who
nerd.
care about like reading and writing, talking about, smart stuff.
dig
It's
it.
so good.
Yeah,
I love
Workshops,
Litfest.
seminars. It's cool.
It's
I've been-
exciting for them to have a brand new building, too.
Mhm.
A lot of great writers have come out of the Lighthouse Writers Workshop.
Yeah, it's a
so.
great organization too. So something fun to support.
Okay.
David, how you feel about Litfest?
I listen. The Lighthouse is great. I think I got to know. Oh, I did. In part, I got to know my managing editor, Joel Warner.
Joel Warner.
Yeah, Joel Warner is
Old
the Levers
Westwarder.
managing editor. Worked at Westward. He's done stuff with Lighthouse. I got to know Steve Almond, the great author Steve
the
Almond.
best.
He is the best through Lighthouse, and anything to support them. I mean, it's one of the. I feel like if you know them, you know them.
Wow, you're really selling that.
Yeah,
you
get to
sold
meet
that.
some
You
cool
sold
people
that
like
more than I
Joel
did.
and Steve, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be tough to beat. Tough to beat.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's Friday evening. Saturday afternoon, Lakewood is hosting the Summer Farm Fest, which is put on through Sprout City Farms. And it's just like, it's a typical festival, with local food trucks, drinks, art projects, live music, things like that. But you can also take tours of Sprout City Farms. So they're an organization that starts farms. They're dedicated to building urban farms and building a hyperlocal food ecosystem around the city. And I think that's a great organization to support.
I like it.
I like what
The
they
tour
do.
of it, too, is a good way to get to know what an urban farm really looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Yeah,
it's
learning more.
Because it feels kind of like, how could you do it? But once you see it in practice, like we have one in Westwood, it makes so much sense once you see it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's over in Lakewood. I picked them because I think that's a great organization.
I like it.
Kids love farm stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I remember
should take
taking
a
my
kid
kids up
there.
to do the you pick 'em.
Oh, yeah.
Up in Longmont. And it kind of blew my kids' mind. They were like, "We're picking tomatoes off of." It's like, yeah, they actually. That's
grow
how.
from
That's how a
somewhere.
tomato does not come from the grocery store. It comes from that.
Oh, I love that idea.
Peyton, I got a big question for you here. Do they got cows at this farm?
I actually don't think. I
I
think
will
it's
not
more.
be eating them.
Okay.
I think it's more produce driven than.
Okay. So you'll be safe.
Yes.
At this
Yes.
event.
No
Good,
attacking
good.
cows.
What else we got, Peyton?
Okay, this one is my favorite. The Taylor Party at Elitch Gardens, where you go and you pay too much money to listen to Taylor Swift all night long. And
Taylor
dance.
Swift party at Elitch Gardens?
Like not to
Yes.
see her, just
No.
to
No,
like,
it's just to hang out with other
It's
Taylor
just a
Swift
dance
fans.
party.
I mean, please don't tell my 9-year-old daughter that because she will demand that I go because we've got the the Google thing. It's always like, hey Google, put on Taylor Swift. That's what my first thing in the morning. Like if I told my kid Taylor Swift plus Elitch Gardens, Like
Yeah.
that's it. I'm done. Like I will have no choice.
We'll send
Hi,
this
am I your
episode to
9-year-old daughter? Because
Yeah.
that's exactly me. I'm like, roller coasters, Taylor Swift party, I'm in. So
Cute.
don't know if I'll
Cute.
get any of you guys, or at least you two, on board with that one. But
I
hey,
like Taylor Swift. I'm a fan.
Zoe
I'm not a
Sirota
super
might be
fan.
there.
Zoe Sirota might be there.
All right, what's number 4? What's
And
number
the
4,
last thing is the Denver Chalk Art Festival happening in the
so
Golden
cool.
Triangle area. It's a really awesome thing.
Peyton? We can't even talk about it. The rain is on the forecast.
Ah.
I've been to this event when it rained.
No.
It's nothing.
Does it just break
it's
your
just
heart?
nothing.
Yeah, that's
I'm
actually
sorry.
really sad.
It's not going to happen.
No, that's not happening.
Hate
Hey,
to
can
be
I
a
sub
downer,
it?
but-
Can I sub it for something else?
Yeah, let's sub it in for something else.
This is also, well, no. Okay. 5 Points Jazz. Also
Oh.
happening this
Staple.
weekend.
Oh, okay.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Staple
Yeah,
of Denver.
all along Welton Street. Pop into all these different places.
What
try
day is
the
that?
different
That's
food.
Sunday?
That is happening Saturday.
Saturday.
I love any reason to get into 5 Points and but be in the street when everybody's around.
Yeah.
It's just like you
That's the
feel
way to do 5
the
Points.
energy of that. Why that neighborhood is so amazing.
Yeah.
And I think the Jazz Fest just epitomizes it.
Totally.
All right, so we got Lit Fest at the new Lighthouse Writers Workshop. We got the Urban Farm situation. We got
Lakewood.
the Taylor Swift event at Elitch Gardens. And not Denver Chalk Art. You can go if you want. And
5
what's that
Points
last one again?
Jazz.
5 Points Jazz. 5 Points Jazz. What are we thinking? What are we leaning here?
I'm feeling the jazz. I feel like you get the food and the music
Yeah.
and the neighborhood. Like
I
that's
do
the
love it.
total package.
Jazz is cool.
Although Taylor Swift on a roller coaster is pretty
Also,
good too.
seeing a ton of little girls go crazy is just the cutest thing.
Hey,
I love seeing
One
young music
30-year-old
fans.
go crazy.
And-
At least one 30-year-old.
a bunch of elementary and middle schoolers, and Peyton will be there.
Yeah.
Do you know what we learned in our house about Taylor Swift?
What?
Fun Taylor Swift thing. Apparently, there was some controversy with some lyric that referred to an Eagles T-shirt. Do you know about
Okay.
this?
No.
never heard.
And for a while, they thought she was referring to the Eagles, the band.
Mhm.
And she came out and clarified it recently and said it's actually the Philadelphia Eagles because she grew up in the Philadelphia area, which is where I grew up. And our family found out that she apparently vacationed at the Jersey Shore, which we have vacationed at every year since I was.
Maybe you could have
14
seen her.
years- I know. I actually started thinking I wonder if I saw her on the beach, or she would have been younger than me, a kid.
But I wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't have known it was Taylor
Just
Swift. Like,
random
can I
person.
get in a time machine and go back and be like, yo, you're Taylor
Can I
Swift?
have your autograph right now
for my daughter? Exactly.
Yeah.
I might vote for that one too, just because I love supporting young music fans.
Wow.
I'm kind of
Well,
getting excited about
hey.
it too.
I
I'm
know,
on the
I
Nuggets
know.
bandwagon.
I
I
think I've
want to be
talked
on the
myself
Taylor
into it.
Swift bandwagon.
Let's do it.
Well, let's do it, guys.
Taylor Swift party, Elitch Gardens.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, there you have it. The official CityCast Denver may be for your weekend, but there's way more where that came from. Peyton's got plenty more recommendations in our newsletter, Hey Denver, which you can subscribe to right now by texting Denver to 66866. Peyton, Bree, David, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
All right, this is Paul. I'm dropping in. This is 3 minutes after you just heard us because we got some important
devastating
information
news.
about the Taylor Swift event at Elitch Gardens.
It's 18 and up. So I have changed my vote because young people can't go to that, and I want to support young people in music. So I am going to say I vote for the 5 Points Jazz Fest.
5 Points Jazz.
Yeah.
5 Point Jeff.
Live music,
Yeah.
like you said, great
Yeah.
food, amazing neighborhood, all ages, hang out all day. 5 Points Jazz Fest.
Yeah, I'm into that. Sorry, Taylor.
There you have it.
Okay.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were me, Paul Caroli, and Olivia Jewel Love. Peyton Garcia writes our morning newsletter. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocochetes, with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Twitter or Instagram at CityCast Denver, and tell the organizers of the Chalk Fest that we're sorry. They can't control the weather. It's okay. Next year will be better. You can sign up for that daily newsletter I mentioned, Hey Denver, by texting Denver to 66866 and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week.
I think it's so funny that when he scores at the game, the graphic is a Canadian flag. It's so
You can
funny.
get Nuggets shirts with the Canadian flag out of
Can
the
you?
Nuggets store at Ball Arena. I almost bought one for Paul.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, as a Canadian, that was kind of my.
Oh, I
way
didn't know
into
you were
this team.
Canadian.
A
Oh, yeah.
dual citizen.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice for me.